Hey everyone, I can see a couple of people joining us already. We will be getting started in another probably 2 minutes. So sit tight and we'll be starting soon. If you are just joining us, we are going to start in another minute or so. So sit tight. We will be starting momentarily. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I actually want to kick things off with a poll as we wait for anybody else to trickle in. So we're going to start with this poll today. Just want to get you started thinking about what your weeks look like. How often do you feel like you have enough time to recharge during the work week? Often, occasionally, rarely, or never. And we'll come back to those results in a couple of slides, but we'll just give everybody. I'm going to leave this up on the screen while people continue to trickle in for the next maybe 30 to 45 seconds. I can see a couple of you submitting responses. If you haven't yet submitted your answer, I'll give you another maybe 10 seconds here to think that over. And then we'll kick things off. All right, we will come back to those results in a couple minutes. In the meantime, hi everyone, welcome. Thanks for being here with me today. My name is Morgan Zients. I'm the Senior Product Education Manager here at Jotform. Very happy to have you on the line with me for 5 practical strategies to prevent teacher burnout. As you are probably well aware, teachers experience higher burnout than any other profession. But with the right tools, it does not have to be that way. As we head into a new school year, which is probably starting already for many of you on the line, if it hasn't already started, you may be starting within the next couple of weeks. This is a great time to think about actionable steps that schools can take to address the key causes of burnout. And in today's session, we will be looking at some of the things that can cause burnout. We'll also be looking at the consequences of burnout. And then we'll look at how you can lean on technology to minimize the risk of burnout among your school or school district's employees, or if you are an educator, by yourself. After that, I will provide you with some examples in the way of a demo and resources, and hopefully leave you with plenty of tools to get started. Now, before I move forward with those poll results and into the rest of the content, I did want to give a quick couple of notes about the platform we're using. So first, I want to encourage you to submit questions at any time today. You can do that in the box below where you're seeing the slides. My colleague James is on the line with us today, ready to answer questions as they arise. And we can also cover some of those live at the end. So please feel free to share those anytime, no matter what it is, if it's about tips and tricks or if it's about the platform specifically. We're happy to hear from you. I also wanted to point out that I will go into the resources a little bit more in depth later, but below where you're seeing me, you'll see a number of resources related to today's session. And then finally, if at any time today you want to directly get in touch with our sales team, there is a box to the right of the slides where you can do that. You are able to minimize, maximize, move any of these windows around. So please feel free to do that. That's not going to affect anybody else's experience. It's just going to let you focus on what you most need to focus on today. Okay, so let's look at the results of our poll. We have, so this is kind of what I expected. How often do you feel like you have enough time to recharge during the work week? And 75% of you who responded said rarely, 25% said never. That I think is pretty typical to anybody in the education field. And that leads us really nicely into the rest of the presentation. So to kick things off with some statistics, across the board, teachers report feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and burnt out at a rate that is higher than any other group in the US workforce. A 2022 Gallup poll found that those who work in K-12 suffer from the highest burnout rate, with 44% reporting that they feel burned out very often or always. The same poll showed college and university workers with the next highest burnout level, just below that at 35%. These are really high numbers of people reporting that they feel burnt out very often or always. But where does that burnout come from? I'm sure this isn't an exhaustive list, but some of the key places, I'm going to talk about those right now. One of those is heavy workloads. Teachers spend up to 29 hours a week doing non-teaching tasks like writing emails, grading, finding classroom resources, and other administrative responsibilities. There's just not enough time in the day for teachers to complete all of the tasks that they need to do, in addition to their primary job, which of course is teaching. So tasks like lesson planning, following up with parents, and paperwork often extend their days into evenings and weekends. Another challenge is classroom management. Disruptions, behavioral issues, and time spent on classroom management can take up instructional time and emotional energy, which can add an invisible layer of stress. And finally, one other key cause is that there's an expectation for teachers to be available and on 24/7. Parents and students expect constant availability, real-time responses, even on nights and weekends. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. It's not meant to be, but these are some of the key reasons that teachers report feeling burnout. And burnout doesn't exist in a vacuum. When it happens, heavy workloads make it hard for teachers to keep up with their core responsibilities. This can potentially lead to mistakes and important work falling by the wayside. Teachers can feel overwhelmed, exhausted, mentally detached, and ineffective. Burnout doesn't just affect the teacher themselves either. There's an impact on teaching quality. Burnt out teachers can't give their best to students. There's higher absenteeism. Burnout leads to more sick days and leave requests. And perhaps most significantly, there's increased turnover. School districts and universities struggle to retain staff, increasing workloads for everyone remaining. As a result, 8% of public school teachers leave the profession each year, and 86% of K-12 public schools reported challenges hiring teachers. Again, that's a huge percentage of those schools. Almost 9 out of 10 schools reported challenges. Now, all of that being said, burnout isn't inevitable. With the right tools, schools can help teachers reclaim time, reduce stress, and create healthier workplaces for everyone. Instead of addressing burnout on a case-by-case basis, education leaders should consider how they can proactively reimagine current processes to save time and energy for everyone. Over the next number of slides, we'll look at various ideas and tools to support educators to meet those stressors head-on. So if you are working with a school or a district, I encourage you to think about this for the teachers that you work with. And if you are a teacher yourself, hopefully there's some tips in here that you can incorporate directly. The first solution is to go paperless. Reclaim time and money by taking everything digital. Schools are drowning in paperwork, from attendance logs and classroom materials to permission slips, IEPs, evaluations, and more. You can easily save time printing, collecting, and organizing paper forms worksheets, and reports by digitizing. In addition to saving time, this helps prevent errors that occur with manual data entry. If your access to data is straight from the source rather than passed through multiple hands, you can rest assured that it's more accurate. And if that data ultimately needs to be stored somewhere different from where it was collected, from a registration form to a student information system, for example, digitizing paper workflows also makes syncing across multiple systems a seamless process. Digitizing a process makes it easier to share data without digging through file cabinets. Teachers and staff have instant access to student data right from whatever device they're using. And for things like grades and behavioral records, teachers can easily track how students are doing over time and identify trends. Digital records also allow schools to see who accessed data when and if they made any changes. Digitizing forms and records does come with security considerations, so it's important to research security features before you make any type of switch. Again, I have resources in the side here that you can look at any time. One of those is a technology and education white paper report, and that does cover some of the security concerns that you should be thinking about. So that's a great resource for you if you are considering changes. And if you're thinking about Jotform, just like to note right now that we are FERPA compliant, so that might put your mind at ease just a little bit. A bonus benefit of going paperless is reducing ink and paper costs and freeing up the space taken by filing cabinets or storage closets. An Adobe report calculated that schools can save $6 per document. That's $3,000 if that school sends the same document to 525 students. And that's just for one document. Likewise, a report from Helios Ed showed that a district with 1,000 employees can save over $275,000 each year by going paperless. That is, again, a large sum of money that could be better spent elsewhere. Before we move into our next idea, I have another poll. This is the last poll we have here today. Do you or your staff currently use any automations to save time? Now, a little bit of a spoiler alert. This means we're going to be talking about automations next, and I'd love to see what your experience has been with that so far. So I'll give you another maybe 30 seconds to think about that and respond to that poll, and then we'll look at results and go on to our automation points. You see some responses coming in. I'll give you another maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds to respond to this poll. All right, we can go ahead. I think responses are slowing. All right, great, thank you. So here's the results. Some of you using automations and they've helped. Some have tried, most of you, it looks like, have used some and they've helped. Some have tried but are having difficulty with that. Others of you not yet, but we're interested. So those of you in this group, hopefully with those two responses, hopefully we can give you some peace of mind coming up. And nobody's saying no, and we're not looking to, so that's great. Some of you, it sounds like even if you're not using automations currently, it's something that you're thinking about and something you'd like to explore. So that's great to see. So let's talk about automation. The next idea here, obviously, is to take advantage of automation for administrative tasks. An RSIS international study found that the increasing burden of clerical work significantly hampers teaching processes and negatively impacts student learning. Teachers report that managing administrative duties leaves them with less time and energy to devote to lesson planning and teaching. Some examples of that clerical work might be inputting attendance logs and grades, tracking behavior incidents or academic interventions, coordinating parent-teacher conferences and meetings, responding to emails from parents or admin staff, sending out class announcements and reminders, and following up on missing forms or assignments or other things. Clerical work and administrative tasks are, of course, necessary. They're necessary for all of us, but they shouldn't consume a teacher's entire day. By automating time-consuming processes, important workflows can continue on in the background while the teacher focuses on educating. We have a really neat example of that in the Anaheim Union High School District. This is a very large school district that serves 26,000 students. They report that they've saved 8 hours of clerical work per day. So, not a misstatement. That's not per week, month, or year. That is a full time employee's worth of time each day on clerical work by digitizing and automating workflows. In doing this, they've freed up time for staff to focus on more important duties. And with regards to the time that parents are spending on registration, they've been able to cut that at least in half. Automated workflows can streamline processes like coordinating meetings and parent-teacher conferences, tracking behavior incidents, and planning field trips and collecting permission slips. For meetings, this might look like a parent automatically scheduling a meeting during a time slot that's already been approved. Then maybe an automatic email notification goes out confirming this for both the parent and the teacher, and maybe even some reminder emails are sent out. With regards to tracking behavior, teachers can fill out a digital counseling referral form that routes directly to the appropriate counselor with no middle person needed, no printing, no physically following up with people. Staff can stay informed at every stage, and the student receives the support that they need without that getting tied up in paperwork and bureaucracy. And for field trips, teachers can submit trip details for review. Once approved, guardians can receive a link to fill out a permission slip and complete payment. Approval is logged and archived, and we'll actually be looking at this workflow as an example in the demo, so stay tuned for that. We'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. With all of the paperwork that goes on in school, again, we're just scratching the surface here, but hopefully this gives you some examples of stuff that you might be able to automate. And again, hopefully that demo will inspire you even more. To support teacher well-being and streamline collaboration, it's important to take a closer look at how communication is managed across the school community, which brings us to our third idea of centralizing communication. Teachers report feeling overwhelmed by the volume of emails, meetings, and requests that they receive from students and parents. On top of that, tracking communication through multiple platforms can cause confusion, delay responses, and increase stress. Schools can set up systems for communication that establish boundaries and protect teacher time. This isn't about cutting off communication with the teacher, but really channeling it into the right place and time. Centralized communication tools ensure everyone knows where to go for updates or the support they need, and that way nothing is overlooked. And I will just say, as a personal note, I have a child starting big kids school for the first time this week, and on the parent end, I can contest that there certainly is a lot of communication and there's a lot of confusion. So I'm sure if I'm feeling it, teachers and administrative staff feel it as well. One way to achieve this is to create a portal or dedicated app to centralize announcements, assignments, syllabi, school policies and calendars, contact forms, and much more. I know many schools are already doing this, but if you're not, this is definitely something that you can be thinking about. Self-service hubs also allow students to submit assignments or request help without teacher intervention needed immediately in the moment. Looking back at the Anaheim Union High School District example that I shared a moment ago, their custom app allows teachers, parents, and students to easily access resources right from mobile devices, which means that it's available anytime they need it. Their IS specialist, Laura DeMorno, points out that if you're in the field, you don't have to scan a QR code or find a link. You just open your app. All of the forms are there for you, whatever you need. Our next suggestion is to utilize the power of AI. Now, AI, of course, should not be a replacement for teachers, but it is something that can be very useful in helping save time and reduce mental load. Teachers can use AI to transcribe meeting notes or summarize long reports, draft emails to parents or administrators, quickly create quizzes or other classroom resources, and easily generate things like discussion questions or activity outlines. In an interview with Education Week, one high school science teacher reported saving over 9 hours of labor by using AI to create a test for her students. With AI assistance, she says that she saves time and energy and doesn't get burnt out as much anymore, not quite as much as before. Teachers can also use AI to minimize some of that after-hours communication. For example, Jotform AI agents can provide real-time 24/7 support to students and parents by answering FAQs about school policies, routing questions to the appropriate person, and just reducing those after-hours notifications. Teachers can later review records of AI agent communication if they would like to, and they can follow up as needed. Finally, our last idea here today is to support staff autonomy with no-code tools. An international K-12 study found, K-12 teacher study found that teachers whose principals gave them more autonomy in instruction showed fewer burnout symptoms. One simple way that schools can give teachers more autonomy is by introducing no-code tools. When those are introduced, teachers and staff no longer need to wait for IT to build a solution or customize something for them. They can easily create on their own. For example, Jotform's templates and drag and drop interfaces make it simple for non-technical users to create forms, workflows, apps, and other tools that can simplify their daily responsibilities. And on that note, we're going to go out into a demo of Jotform Enterprise, and we'll look at that workflow I mentioned, as well as we'll very quickly look at an AI agent. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's make sure that's working. All right, great. Okay, so again, two things I'm going to show here. So first, we're going to look at a workflow of taking a field trip from basically inception through getting permissions, and then we'll very briefly look at an example of an AI agent. I am using Jotform Enterprise for this demo, and in the center of my page here, you can see all of the forms, agents, reports, and other assets that belong solely to me. One advantage of Enterprise is that you also have collaborative team workspaces, so I can access my teams here on the left. There's no limit to the number of teams you have or the number of people on the team. And you also have control over the level of access that people have once they're added to a team. So for example, if you work for a school district, maybe you want a team for each school in the district, so admin in that school can collaborate on resources that they need to share and the data they receive. If you work for a school, maybe you set up a team per department or per grade level so that the teachers within that department or grade can collaborate on resources and student data as well. We're going to be using this My School Elementary Tigers team here today. And when I click on that, you can see a number of resources included here. I have a number of forms, some workflows, and an AI agent. And before I go into the examples, I did want to point out, I mentioned you can add people with various levels of access. So as an admin, you can invite new team members at any time. If you look for settings here, when you go to invite members, you'll see your role options. You can invite somebody as an admin, so they have full access to all of the assets and data, as well as administrative responsibilities. Somebody can be a data collaborator, so that is access to all of the forms and data and other assets, but not administrative oversight. A data viewer can only view forms, assets, and data, and a creator can only view or edit forms and assets, but they can't view data. So this gives you a lot of flexibility in who has access to what. For example, if you work for a high school and you have student assistants for each department, maybe your student assistant gets added as a creator so they can help manage some of the administrative responsibilities for the department, but they would not have access then to any of the student data for their peers. One other thing to point out as an admin for the team, and this goes back to something I mentioned in the slides, which is that digitizing can help give you better insight into what's going on with anything you've digitized. As an admin, you have access to team settings. And one thing that's really important here on the team settings is the team activity log. Here you can see a full record of any action that's gone on with the team. So you can see I've updated things, I've moved things, etc. I've added things, deleted things. Anytime an action happens within the team, you will also see who caused that action and when that happened. So this gives you oversight into everything that's going on. And if you need to follow up on anything, you know who to get in touch with. All right, so I'm gonna hit this Jotformers logo here to go back to our team landing page. Just to note, if you're ever using Jotform Enterprise, you'll have your logo here and you can hit that logo to go back to your landing page. So we're back in the team workspace now. So now let's dive into the field trip workflow. I have two different workflows tied into one here. So we have a field trip approval request form. This is something that a teacher is going to fill out for administration to get a field trip approved, scheduled, etc. Then the teacher can go ahead and take this field trip permission form and send that out to parents. So both of those have a workflow included, and we're just going to dive in and look at that. So I'm going to open up the field trip approval request form by hitting edit form. And this brings it up as an editor, so somebody who has access to being able to remove or move fields around. You can move a field by clicking on it, dragging and dropping. You also have properties for each field, and you can remove a field by clicking the trash can icon. If you need to add any fields, you can find those in the left, and you just drag and drop them where you want them. Now, this is a pretty lengthy form, very important information like when is this happening, who's going, who's the teacher responsible, how many parents do you need, what's the cost, etc. But even though it is a lengthy form, this is still quite a bit easier than a teacher having to find the right PDF, print it, fill it out, hand it to somebody who then has to take that data and input it somewhere and then follow up to get the actual approval. Another advantage of doing this digitally with Jotform is that you can have an AI agent walk teachers through the process of filling this out. So again, we'll go back to AI agents in a little bit, but that is an option as well and can make it far more conversational and a little bit easier to get through. Also, as administrative staff, if your district or school policies around field trips change at any point, you can come in here and make those real-time changes just in the way I just showed. And that way teachers always have access to the most current version of what they need to fill out, rather than having to share a new link to a new PDF. As a teacher, if I'm here to fill this out, I can go to the Publish tab and I can copy this link into a browser or open a new tab. The form itself looks almost identical to what we just saw, just without the ability to edit it. And then once I'm done, I'll hit Submit Field Trip Request, and that goes off to where it needs to go. Publish is where you'll find all of your sharing options for any form. So in this case, again, the teacher can grab the link, but there are many other options as well. So we looked at Build and Publish. The middle tab here is Settings, and Settings is what happens more behind the scenes with your form. So if you want to incorporate conditional logic or integrations, you'll find those here. You can customize email confirmations and thank you pages. You can also add workflows here, and that is what we're going to look at next. So workflow is something that's built into the form that routes it where it needs to go. And I can hover over this right here and look for the pencil icon to pull that up. And here we have the workflow for this form. This might look a little complicated just by initial glance, especially if you haven't built a workflow before. It doesn't have to be this complicated. You can build one-step workflows, and actually we'll look at one of those in a moment. And it can be more complex if you need. Anything you are adding to this workflow, you can add by dragging and dropping, just like with the form builder, and then you'll connect one point to the next point. It's pretty easy to do. Each workflow element has its own settings, so you'll want to pay attention to the settings as well. That can control like reminders for approvals and a lot more. You can customize language of emails, anything you need to do at that step. So looking at this workflow, what we're seeing here is that the starting point is that a teacher submits that field trip approval request form just by hitting that button I showed. And this form automatically goes to the principal first. The principal will approve or deny. If they deny, we can follow this down and see that the teacher is getting an email letting them know their request is denied. If the principal approves, we then need approval from two different finance people. We have a split here that is going to cause this approval workflow to happen simultaneously. We need both of these people to accept. If either rejects, again, the teacher is getting that rejection email. In this case, presumably the principal or the finance people will give a reason. Maybe there's already another field trip booked that day, or maybe they need a little bit more information. So the teacher can follow up, do this again if they need to, and whatever else they need to do to take it from there. Now, if both finance specialists approve, the workflow is coming back together. You can see that with the all. So we have accept all, accept all. And then in that case, the teacher is getting a report of everything that's happened here, and they're getting notified that the field trip has been approved. Couple of things to point out here. All of this is happening automatically. So as soon as the teacher hits that submit button, the principal gets an email saying that your approval is requested. As soon as the principal approves, the finance specialists are both getting emails saying, please approve this. And then whatever the outcome is, the teacher is automatically getting notified. So this eliminates the need, again, to have to manually follow up with people. to have to track anyone down, to have to get a physical signature on things. All of that is built in. And that can be reviewed by anybody as the process continues. So the teacher can easily get updates on where this is in the process. And once everything is complete, all parties also have a record of that. So let's say that this field trip has been approved. We're going to go back to that, that previous tab, our team here. Now it's time for the teacher to send out a permission slip to all of the parents. So again, we're going to edit form. And again, on the publish tab here, the teacher can grab a link and share it with the portal that you're using for your school. They can also invite parents by email. This won't expose email addresses. It will just go to individual people, but you can enter multiple email addresses there. There are also a number of other sharing ways to share, as I mentioned earlier, social media, QR codes, etc. Now here, if we go to settings, once again, I have a workflow built in. This is a much more straightforward workflow. In this case, the starting point is that a parent completes that form, and then they immediately receive the payment form. So they have to fill out both of these. The teacher needs to have a record of both of these. Once that's done, the process ends. A couple of more automations that I built in here, if we go to settings, I have set up reminders. So once the parent submits the permission slip, they are going to get a reminder to pay every 2 days until they've paid. So I've done that here on the advanced tab. And one other thing I've done here is that I've pre-filled data. I've told the system to push data from the permission slip, so child's first name, last name, and the parent phone number, to that payment form. So when the parent receives it, they'll receive it with that information already completed. That way the parent saves a little time. They don't have to duplicate anything. We have better data accuracy. We can ensure that there's no errors from one to the next. That also helps the teacher ensure that each payment is tied to a specific student's permission form, and there's no confusion over who's submitted what. As a teacher, if I want to keep my eyes on who's responding, I can also go up here to the drop-down menu and find tables, and I'll see a full database of responses from here. So each line here, each row is one response to that form. We have one permission slip submitted already. The teacher can easily skim and see if anything is missing. And as additional student permission slips come in, the teacher can also easily scan this list and see if anybody is missing, see if there's anybody that they might need to manually follow up with. So very useful for the teacher to be able to keep track of things. And again, it saves a lot of time and effort of having to manually email people, call people, etc. Really, in this case, that only needs to happen if it's getting close to the date and the teacher hasn't received that information yet. Okay, so that covers it for our field trip example. So again, here I use 2 workflows over 3 forms to take the field trip from the time that the teacher has an idea and needs to get administration approval for that. And then another workflow related that can get those permission slips and signed and payments received. And again, that's saving a lot of time and effort in digitizing the whole process. All of that data is maintained. It's here. It's accessible anytime anybody needs it. So before I go back to slides, let's briefly look at our AI agent example as well. Once again, I'm going to hover over that and look for the edit option, and I'll pull that up in the agent builder. This is where, as the teacher or administrator for a school, you would go to build out your agent. Here on the build tab, we have just some general settings, like what kind of agent is this going to be? Is it going to be a chatbot, voice agent, etc.? Once again, on the publish tab, we have all of our sharing options. So this could be, again, a link shared in a parent portal. You can invite people by email. You can share, embed this into your school or district's website. Really, a lot of options depending on what you need. The train tab here is maybe the most important part of your agent. This is where you'll go to give the agent the information it needs to respond to questions and, again, save you as the educator or you as an administrator or your teachers or whatever, all of the time and effort that they might be spending otherwise. You can add as much knowledge as you need, and you can use all of these options to do that. I believe enterprise users don't have any limits on what you're including here. For knowledge, there you would just type in information. So this has been hand typed. You can also upload files. So maybe that is a student handbook or district policies, and the agent will be able to reference those. You can include links, so maybe that is to your school or your district's website, and the agent will crawl those for feedback or responses. And you can give the agent direct answers to specific questions like, how can I get in touch with administration about a concern? And the agent will respond, email administration@myschool.com. In addition to that, you can also pull things in from your YouTube, Zendesk, and Freshdesk accounts. These are pretty new features. So again, you have a lot of different options on how you can get information to your agent. Now, this is, again, a very brief example. Part of the reason I'm keeping this short is just to keep us within a reasonable time today and leave plenty of time for questions. Another reason is that we do comprehensive trainings on this agent every 2 weeks. My colleague Kimberly runs those, and she does them live, so they're updated. And as soon as we have updates to the product, those are reflected in those sessions. So if you are interested in learning more, I am more than happy to get you signed up for one of those sessions. Just let me know. Okay, so we've looked at building out the agent. Now let's look at it. Let's say we're a parent and we are interested in what clubs our student can sign up for. I can type that here into the box, but there's also these kind of shortcut buttons here. But let's say what clubs are available. The agent is going to respond with the information that they've been given. So the available clubs for all Tigers are soccer, t-ball, choir, and band. And please contact administration to sign up. Okay, but how do I get in touch with administration? Type that in. And she's going to come back and she will give me the email address that I provided her. Get in touch with administration by emailing administration@myschool.com. I guess this should probably be myschool.edu, but I apologize for that mistake in my little demo here. Administration@myschool.com. So again, very brief overview of how this agent works, but the implications here are very big for, again, for districts, schools, or individual teachers. This is something that you can create. You can take just a few minutes to upload or add links, or add in those FAQs that you get and the answers for those. That way, once this is available to parents and students, it's available anytime they need it, 24/7, and they no longer have to be bothering teachers with those questions. One other thing to point out here is that if teachers do want to review this, they can come up here to conversations. And this will give them a record of every conversation that the agent has fielded. They can review this anytime they need. And if they see anything that they feel like they need to follow up on, they can. They don't have to. This, again, can be more of a first line of defense. And that might be the only line of defense needed. But if they do need to follow up on something, they can easily get in touch with the person who submitted the questions. Okay, so that covers it. Just going back to our elementary school Tigers page here, we covered those workflows and we covered agents. I briefly mentioned and just want to reiterate that you can also tie forms to your agents. So this agent in particular also has a registration form affiliated with it. So if anybody's looking to register for this school, the agent can prompt them to fill out this form. So another neat feature of agents that can help save a lot of time and effort. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to stop sharing and we'll go back to slides and close things out. And then we'll have some time for questions. If you haven't already shared a question and you have questions, please feel free to enter those now. And let me just, okay, we're on our resources. So again, just want to talk a little bit more about the resources that you have. These are linked here in the slides and you have access to today's slides. They're also linked in the resources box, again, that you should be seeing underneath me. So that Anaheim Union High School District, if you're interested in learning more about that, if that was an example relevant to you, the full case study is linked there. Also, that white paper is linked. Again, that is technology in education and among other things goes into depth about things to consider security-wise, et cetera, as you are considering new technology. And then we also have some templates linked as well. All of the examples I showed you today were from our template library. So if those were examples that you can use, take advantage of, you can find them in the template library. You don't need to create those from scratch. They're made it even easier for you to get started there. So you will see templates for AI agents related to education, as well as workflows related to education. And if you are using a workflow template that also typically comes with the forms that would be relevant to that, you can customize any of that. That goes for agents as well. So if you're using a template, You can fully customize whatever you need to and consider it a starting point, or you can use it straight out of the box. I think the examples I showed, I didn't make any changes to those, or I made very minor changes. So yeah, they might be ready for you to go right away. All right, so yeah, so I want to close out with some time for questions. Again, we have a couple of questions here, but if you have any additional questions, now is a great time to enter those. That can be best practices questions or questions about the product. We're happy to respond whatever to whatever we can and whatever you need at this point. I did see a question come in about an easy system for teachers to manage assignments being turned in. Yeah, you can absolutely use the form builder for that. That can be having the student add their name to that, and then just an upload field where they can upload a PDF or another file. There is, if I share my screen again, I can show you what that looks like. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, okay, great. On the build tab here, if we're looking at a form, there is a file upload option. So you can have students submit through here. And that's also a very easy way for you to track. Maybe you want to just have a form that has the student's name and the file upload as the only fields. That way you know who's submitting it, and you'll also know from the system when that was submitted, and the student can upload their file. And then over time, you can also, again, track that in tables. So you'll see as assignments come in, you'll see if any students' assignments are missing. You can also filter and sort from tables as well. So if you want to just see a single student's assignments throughout the year, or anything else that might be useful to you, you can do that here with the filter options. Also from tables, any data you have in here can be downloaded. You can move columns that you don't need to see. There's a lot of functionality here, and don't have time to get into all of it right now, but it's a really, really useful tool for keeping track of all of the data that you get from your forms. Stop sharing, and let's see what else we have here. How can I create a database of current students but hide or keep previous students? Again, that's a place where tables would be really useful. So if you want a database of all students, again, you can use filters to filter it just to current year students. You can also create multiple tabs, so you never have to delete data, but maybe as each year goes by, you can move last year's students to a new tab and then just focus on this year's students. Again, there are a number of ways that you can customize tables, and there's a lot of functionality in there, but I would think that would be a really useful resource for you in managing student information over time. Once somebody submits an application for enrollment, can Jotform automatically send an invoice form? Yeah, that's very similar to the workflow that I showed around field trips. So let me just pull that up one more time. This is the last question I see right now. So again, this will be your one last opportunity to get a question in if you'd like to. Let's go back to our form here. Actually, let me go back to, let me go back and grab the other, here we go, permission slip. So it sounds like the example you're looking for, where you want to follow up with parents once they've submitted enrollments to ask for fees or whatever else. This workflow is one way to do that. There are some other ways, and I'd be happy to talk to people offline if you're interested in that. But I think this is a pretty easy way to do it. Once the parent submits the first form, in this case, again, they are automatically getting an email notification with a link to the second form. And everything is right there for them. There's no need for a teacher or an administrator to follow up with them. You can set in those reminders. You can set in pre-fill, make it easier for everybody involved, and hopefully see a really smooth, seamless process. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions. That's all the questions I see. If you have any questions after today's event, or if I missed a question, I want to welcome you all to get in touch with me directly. My name is, again, Morgan Zients. I am Morgan at Jotform, Morgan at Jotform. Whether that is pointing you to resources, sharing examples, helping you with technical issues if you're already a Jotform user, I'm happy to do any of that. So please feel free to get in touch with me at any time for that. And otherwise, thank you for joining today. And we have these webinars around once a month, so feel free to get in touch with me to ask about when the next of those is, but hopefully we'll see you at a future webinar as well. Thanks. Bye.